What's up, everybody? Just getting back from SEMA. Yeah, so we just got back in from SEMA, spent 7 or 8 days out there in Vegas. We had Crew Sled out there in MTX's booth. We also had the Hudson in MTX's booth, and we had the 49 Chevy in Vim Tools booth. And like I've said before, if you haven't been to SEMA, man, it's really unbelievable. Every single year, it's just like, no matter how many times you go, it's just like, wow, so many people there, so many cars. And we walked 20 miles a day, and I still didn't get to see everything. I had some appearances and demos to do, so I still couldn't even get to every hall. It's pretty wild how it's set up there. So definitely, if you've not been, really try to make it a bucket list thing to do to get out there, because it's really awesome. And we're so fortunate to have a few cars out there every year. It's a lot of work. We've got a lot of great companies we work with who are able to make it happen. So we're super excited for next year's SEMA, which is why this Charger and you see the OBS back there are in the background. So these are our 2026 SEMA projects. The Charger is actually getting really close. We've got a little bit to do. We've got the wiring harness that's finally built for the engine. We're going to get that on there pretty soon. We've got the flush glass that we're going to get glued in there. And if you haven't seen this car, go back and check it out on the channel. We've got a few videos on it. We've done a lot of metal fab where we basically took down the scoops in the door. We sunk them about another inch. We did the same in the hood. Just a lot of cool features throughout this thing that's going to make it really, really cool. So I'm excited about it. And then we've got the single cab OBS that we've been working on. And I know that one I've gotten more messages from you guys about than any one of them about where we're at on it. Are there going to be more videos? What about the grill? So that's what we're going to focus on now. That's got a long way to go, and we basically have a year to do it. So what we're going to do today is, I've got a few different things I'd like to get to. We'll see where we're at, but we're going to start off with the grill. We've got to make a filler panel on that. Then we can get that sent back off to Fuller. He can get us a full print done, and we'll start trying to figure out how we're going to get Oracle Lighting to build the lights. So we've got to come up with all that stuff too. So a lot still involved in it, but let's get at it. So over on our OBS, here's where we kind of left off. We've got the grill fit to the truck. Brian did a half print, so we basically sent the design that we had come up with over there to those guys, and then they did a blank. They scanned the factory grill, did a blank that's half the size, and what we're doing right now is we got it all fit to the truck. So we got the Muncie carbon fiber hood fit, we got it gapped out, we got it where we know it's going to sit, and then what we did was we built this up a little bit to get a little tighter gap, because those trucks have a pretty good gap on them between the grill and the hood. And we also worked on kind of gapping out to the fenders and getting all that how we want it to fit this truck. So a lot of people have had a lot of comments about this. A lot of people want one. They want to know when it's going to be done, all that good stuff. And then you've got the reverse of that, where how in the hell is it going to get any airflow? That's going to overheat. This is dumb. Okay. For anybody watching right now, if you've gotten this far, this is a blank. This is not what it's going to be like. There will be a grill insert right here. That's where these are taped off. That's going to be the grill opening. That's going to get the airflow, which pretty much is very close to the same opening in the factory grill. So we're keeping that pretty close. We've got our headlight design kind of laid out here. We've got everything fitting pretty good. So what I want to try to do today is I want to build a filler panel that's going to attach to the grill and attach to basically our metal fabbed core support section up here. So if you look at a factory OBS, it's got a couple of tabs that come up and attach to the core support on it. We're going to do something kind of similar to that. So I want to see if I can just make a panel that's going to follow along with this. We'll create a few different tabs and just have a nice spot that the grill can bolt in, where it'll still be very easily removable if you need to get it out of there. So we're going to get going on that, see if we can get a half piece built. Once we get that built, we can send it back out to those guys, and they can do a full print and basically do this one more time. So let's get going. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is try to get a template right here, build it out of cardboard or something like that first before we swap over to metal. Now, if you guys have followed along with the channel, you've probably seen me use this quite a bit. This is a clear vinyl. Used a ton in upholstery work. It works great for that. It may work here, it might not. But the great thing about this, we can give this a try. It's only going to take us maybe 2 or 3 minutes to lay it up here and get a rough outline. It would just save us a ton of time in measuring and fitment and all that, and just go ahead and get us really close in the ballpark. So we got a couple of bends that might make it weird. We'll make a couple of cuts and see if we can get this to lay up there flat. Now, one way you can get it to hold up there to do what you want it to do is just use like a temp tack glue, something like this. This is not really a glue I would ever use to try to hold something permanent. It just always stays sticky, and it never really dries or anything. But the good thing about this, we can spray this on here and stick this vinyl down where we want it, and then when we're done, just a little degreaser or wipe it right off. So not a big deal. So we'll give this a go first, see how it works, and maybe we'll just get lucky and save ourselves a ton of time here. All right, this should get us our general shape, because the hardest part of this is where we metal fabbed all of it. We're just trying to follow along with that. So it's a lot of different shapes, different angles, different bends. So there's really a lot going on. So we're going to mark roughly center. And then just get us, go about 1/4 inch up. That's roughly our end that we can kind of tuck in there. All right, against the grill, not so critical, because what we're going to do when we transfer this to cardboard, we're going to leave it long. We're going to let it hang over. Way we can make sure we get all this fit up nice, and then we can come back and just kind of trace across through here and get the grill section. So I'm going to mark it anyway, just so I've got a good reference of where it's at. But we're going to cut the other long. Looks pretty good. All right, so we're a little off down here on the end. That plastic, you know, you're trying to get in these bends, so it might not square up just right. No big deal though. We can just add another little piece right there to fill that gap. We're going to keep a little bit of a gap between the core support pieces and this piece, but we're really close right there. I'm going to add a little piece just so I can have that gap where I want it, and then we should be able to transfer this over to metal, snip it out, and figure out how we're going to attach it just to be able to scan it for the print. All right, see, we've got a nice even gap right there. That's pretty much where we want it. We get right here, and we've got just a little more, not too terrible. But all we're going to do, take another piece of board, Lay it right there, get that gap perfect, and then we can transfer that over to metal. All right, so now we've got all the gap really nice. We've got the ends really nice. We still got this too long for the grill, but that's okay. We're going to transfer it over to the metal like this. We want to keep the metal too long as well because we're going to end up scribing that down through here just to get it right on that edge. And I think we're ready to transfer it over. Let's go grab some aluminum. Okay, so everything's looking really good. Gap's nice through there. All we're going to do now with our overhang we've got, we're just going to trace up against the grill right there. And now we're going to snip this section off of there, and this will lay on top of the grill. Now, since we did fit the grill to the hood where we did a little filler work here, we're going to end up having to block a little more of this off to kind of take up for the thickness of the aluminum to keep the consistent gap, the nice tight gap that we had against the hood. So if this isn't making any sense to you, here's what's going on with this piece. What we're going to do is we're going to get it fit to the truck. We're going to get this cut. We'll end up probably just panel bonding this down to a 3D printed unit or something like that, since all this is a mock-up. When they go to reprint the grill, this piece of aluminum with this 3D printed section, this will all be one unit printed together, if that makes sense now. So if you look at a factory kind of grill shell on the OBS trucks, that's how they're done. So once we do that and we get this attached, we're going to go ahead and come in here and make a couple of brackets where this grill section, the top portion of it, is going to bolt into our metal fabbed section right here, just kind of how the stock one would be. So that's the plan with that. This will all be one unit. It won't be any separate pieces. So we're going to get this trimmed out right here. See if we can block a little of this off. Check the gap on our hood. Should be able to panel bond this down, make the brackets, and we'll be just about ready to send it back to them. So see if we can get that knocked out. That's nice. I think I'm going to trim just a little more off of it to let it get over onto the grill. That way when they scan it or print it, we don't have any edge right there. So let's take just a little more off of that. So we've got the grill blocked down now, so that looks really good. This is sitting nice and flat on it. We do have a little bit of movement in the hood, so the gap gets a little funny right in the middle. Not too bad, but we can worry about that later. We know this is good and flat, and that's all we're worried about. We can adjust that in a little bit. So what we're going to do now is we just got to clean up the inside edge a little bit. That won't take but a second. We're going to make our two mounts that are going to go right here. I've already made a mark for those. So I'm going to cut some aluminum. That way we can go ahead and bolt it into place. Then once we do that, we can panel bond this piece down, do a little bit of filler work over this just to be able to make it a smooth piece for when they scan it. And then we can make any adjustments from there. So we'll go ahead and knock that out. Now I've got both of these bent up on each end where we want them to go, so we're just going to run a temporary screw through there for now. We'll obviously use a nice bolt when we bolt it in, but for now we don't need to do that. We're just going to use a temporary screw to know that's where it needs to be positioned. I was going to go ahead and weld these on, but I think since I'm going to panel bond this, I'm just going to rough this aluminum up and do the same thing. That way I'm not throwing any heat at this panel and putting any warpage in it at all. So that way when they scan it, there won't be any funny stuff there. Because basically this thing's just got to hold together long enough to get a scan on it, and that's it. So let's go ahead and do these since the day's almost up. That way it can sit overnight. All right, so now we're going to panel bond this together. We use the plyo grip. Really good stuff. Work time 60 minutes, clamp time 4 hours. You can paint over it in 8 hours. We don't really use this for anything around the shop other than if we're just going to kind of temporarily hold something together like this for maybe a scan. I don't put body panels or anything together, but that's what this is used for. So this is some really awesome stuff. I mean, there's cars that are held together with panel bond. One thing you want to make sure of is you're using it on the right spots, like bare metal, aluminum. Make sure to read all that. So this is the disclaimer for this. This is not permanent. This is only enough to get us a scan. So we're not trying to keep anything together for 20 years right here. We're trying to keep it together for a couple of days. So just a disclaimer for anything on this. This is not, we're not doing this permanently. So make sure when you use it, reading the directions and you're using the product how it should be used. So it's pretty cool. It's a two-part. So as it goes through here, it's going to pre-mix. We'll be able to lay it down. We've got the aluminum roughed up. We've got all our tabs roughed up. So we'll clamp this down, let it sit overnight, and should be ready to go tomorrow. So this is sat overnight. Everything looks really good. Our panel bond is dried up. Panel bond is some unbelievable stuff if you've never used it. You'd probably have to cut this thing back apart. Stuff's really unreal. So we've got it how we want it. We're ready to ship it back to them now. So we've got all of our mounting points where they need to be, so they'll have that information, and everything's looking good. I did talk to Fuller this morning, and one thing we were talking about that we may change is this top aluminum piece. We may do a step down on that, which basically means where the grill is sitting, it might come over about an inch, and then that aluminum might step down and come over on the print. All depends on his printer and how he's going to print that, depending on if we do it or not, because it might end up having to be two separate pieces right there. So anyway, we've got it as one piece. If they can print it that way, they'll do the scan, print it, everything else looks good. I'm going to double check everything, make sure I'm happy with it, and then we're going to get it in the mail. One other thing I want to do today is on the doors. Let's check that out. Over on the doors. Okay, so if you want to go back a little ways, check out some of the OBS videos. You'll find the videos where we did the Ken Diggett door handle install. We've got all the information on those over on that video. So what we did when we installed these on the door, we obviously positioned them where we felt they looked best on the truck. They look great, but the functionality might not be as easy to make happen. The reason why is when we position them where we like them the best, you're right on that window track. We could have moved forward a little bit, made it life a lot easier on ourselves, but oh well, that's part of it. I'm worried about how it looks, then we'll worry about making it work. So we can still get in there and make all the latches work and make this mechanical. But we already had another idea, something we want to do. We're going to make these handles work off an actuator. We're also on the door panel side of it, on the inside, it's going to be like a newer Corvette. There's just going to be a button you're going to touch, also work on an actuator, and then we'll do safeties around the truck. So if something were to happen, you can still very easily get in the truck. So here's what the plan is. We've got a really heavy duty button. So what we're going to do is build a bracket off of that window track in there, and when this handle opens up, it's going to push this button and it's going to work off an actuator just like if it were a shaved door. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, so looking inside the door, here's the door jamb. I ended up cutting an access hole right here so you could really see in here. Also, what we're gonna do is you can see how kind of the latch system bolts on. We're gonna make a little panel that's gonna do the same thing right here. This way it makes it really easy if anybody down the road has to work on it. If an owner or anything, they can go right here as opposed to having to pull everything apart and somehow try to get their hands in here to work on it. This will make it really simple, plus it's in the jamb. You're only gonna see it when the door's open, and we'll be able to make it look really nice. So on these handles, when you open it, you can see on the back side of the handle, you've got that big flap right here. That comes over and it hits the window track. That's perfect because we can use that track kind of as our stop. We know we can't go any further than that. We've got our actuator button right here. We're gonna make a mount. We're gonna mount it right against that track, so when this flap opens up, it's gonna push that button, operate the actuator, pop the door open. Really simple, so we'll try to get a mount made to be able to get this in there. We'll wire everything up to a battery out here and make sure it works. So we've got our plate made in here. We've got it kind of contoured where it fits inside the jamb. All that looks good. We've got some magnets holding it in place. So now we're ready to tack it in. We could come up with something here and bolt it in, but I think I want this welded in. I want it to be super solid. Don't want to ever have to worry about it. We'll probably even come in and put a brace on the backside just in case if somebody were to really slam this thing open. We don't have to worry about this ever bending back or coming apart or anything like that. Luckily, with these push button setups and us already having a stop, it's pretty much fail proof, but when you open it, the button pushes so easy, it just takes such little effort to hit that button for it to pop open, so it should work great. Unfortunately, unless we cut any more of this open, I can't get the TIG torch in here to TIG this. We never MIG around here, but we did break out our little Lincoln MIG. Thing's a handy little machine if you have something like this. So we're gonna hit a tack up top and on the bottom. We're gonna get our button in there. We're gonna wire that thing up, and we're just gonna make sure that it works how it's supposed to. We'll do it a bunch of times to make sure it's good to go. Then we'll fully weld it in and make ourselves a little brace. So let's fire up the Lincoln and get at it. All right, so I went ahead and I got this wired up. Didn't want to bore you with that. So pretty simple setup. This is a 2-wire switch. So there's power running into this switch, and then the other side is running to the power side of the actuator. And as this button pushes, it's going to connect those two and send power through it down to the solenoid. Then we've got the solenoid grounded out to the battery. So we're going to close it, make sure it works. All right, so what we're gonna do now, I'm gonna get the button back out of there. I'm gonna fully weld this up, even though with just a couple tacks, that doesn't move at all. No matter how much I'm pushing on it, I was really kind of checking it out there. Still think I'm gonna put a little brace there just to be safe, but I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out now. And I guess we'll call that it for this one. We got the grill section ready to ship out, so we made good progress on that. We figured out how we're gonna do these door handles. Especially not having the room in there with the window track to mechanically get everything to work, getting the linkages up there, that was going to be a pain. So super simple way to do it, especially since we're going to run just a push button on the inside. This way we're not running just an actuator just for the push button. We can do it on both handles, which makes life a little easier for that. So I've got the other one to knock out. We'll do that when we come back for the next one, and then we'll start finishing up this dash. So see you guys next time. Appreciate you watching. Merch is below.